Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. First, thanks for being here. If you enjoy ITF, please rate and review it in Apple Podcasts. This helps others find it, which turns into more people with encounters for me to interview. If you'd like more content than the free weekly edition, go to intothefrayradio.com and click Become an Insider. It's only $4.99 a month or $54 for an entire year. And if you have an encounter you'd like to share, email me at shannon@intothefrayradio.com. If you've got shorter stories, feel free to call the hotline, 877-317-9111. You can call that anytime, toll free. My first book, Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, co-authored with best-selling author G. Michael Hoff, is available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle editions. Once you're finished, please take a moment to leave a rating and review. For signed and personalized copies, send $19.99 via PayPal, free shipping within the U.S. only, to beyondthefrayllc@gmail.com. Besides Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, we now have Beyond the Fray Paramalgamation up for pre-order on Amazon right now. As hinted in the title, of course, it is paranormal stories. All kinds of them. It is an amalgamation. They are extremely difficult to classify in any one category of the paranormal. What is wonderful about this book, it is some of my favorites from the show, plus many will be included that you will have not heard on the show. And if you have any encounters that you'd like in an upcoming volume of Beyond the Fray, shoot me an email, shannon@intothefrayradio.com, or you can even just open your smartphone, talk into any kind of recording app, and email me that file. Be as detailed as you can in your story, of course. Any questions? Again, just email me, shannon@intothefrayradio.com. And last but not least, Jeff and I have created Beyond the Fray Publishing. So, if you've got a book you'd like us to publish for you, send us an email at info@beyondthefraypublishing.com. For general questions and information on us, visit our website, beyondthefraypublishing.com. Books we consider will need to be in the genres cryptid, paranormal, or true crime, both fiction and nonfiction. Thanks again, and that will do it for now. So, on to the show. So on this edition of Into the Fray, I have on with me two wonderful gentlemen that you will know very well, and they are here to talk about an upcoming project that they would like to share with all of you. And that is Derek Hayes of Monsters Among Us podcast and Mr. David Flora of none other than Blurry Photos. Hello, gentlemen.
Greetings. Thank you for having us.
Shannon, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. I mean, we've been chatting now for a while, all of which will never be heard by public ears, and that's all right. But,
probably for the best.
Yeah, definitely for the best. No, thank you guys so much for joining me. And, you know, the reason we're here is because Derek shot me a text about a week ago and said, hey, good old David Flora and I are kind of working on something. Do you want to check it out? And he sent me a trailer for something that you guys are hoping to make into a bigger project. And I was so excited because I am not familiar with this area, with the goings on. It's got everything from cryptids and hauntings and all kinds of interesting people, shall we say, in that area. And and that is all things that you guys want to cover in this project. So without further ado, I don't know who wants to take the reins here, but we are going to talk about Borrego State Park and specifically what has been dubbed, I guess, the Borrego Triangle there in California.
Yeah, I guess I'll start this thing off. The Borrego Triangle is something I guess David and I coined. It's not really a term yet. It kind of describes this window area that's out here by me called Borrego State Park. Now, this is a 500,000 square acre park. It's huge. It's here in the desert in Southern California. And essentially, this place is just filled with UFO sightings, alien sightings on the ground. There are ghost lights. There are haunted places. There's a Sasquatch-type creature called the Borrego Sandman that's trekking around this place. There's all kinds of strange stuff that's happening here. And essentially, it's a window area that no one seems to be covering. There's no books on the subject. There's no DVD documentaries on the subject. There's nothing like that. So David and I discovered this, and we thought, well, why not us? Why not create something for people to explore this area?
And David, was this an area that you had heard of before and were familiar with?
I wasn't familiar with this until Derek sent me he sent me a suggestion for my Miss Cryptid contest, which I run once a year. And I explore about 9 different cryptids and have, the fans vote on them for who comes out on top. But last year in particular, Derek sent me the suggestion of the Borrego Sandman. And I looked into it, did a little research for it. And it's very unique because it's a hairy hominid, a Sasquatch-type creature that is in the desert. And, we have them in the woods, we have them in the snowy mountains, but I had never heard of a desert one before. And turns out there are numerous stories of this thing dating back to the Old West, when people were running through on the stagecoach line, and there were several accounts of people seeing them, shooting at them, tagging and bagging them, and then losing the body on the way to the wherever they were sending it, kind of stuff. So yeah, that kind of stuff's out there. And then the more you look into it, the more stuff starts coming out of the woodwork. And by the end of it, we have UFOs, we have ghosts, all kinds of phenomena, dogmen. It's awesome. And for Derek and I, we had never really dive too deeply into this area ourselves, and we think it's a very unique thing to explore because we've never seen stuff out in the desert. Everybody goes into the woods and has fun with the Sasquattles and stuff out there, but yeah, the desert's a unique one for us.
And where exactly is this? Is this in fact the closest major city would be San Diego to Borrego?
Yeah, It's about 2 hours east of San Diego, and if you're familiar with Joshua Tree or Salton Sea, it's about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of Joshua Tree National Park. So it kind of gives you an indication of where it is. It's close to the Arizona line, almost halfway through the state, but it's a massive swatch of land. You can't miss this park. It's huge,
and not too far from the Mexico border.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, the 500,000 acres. And so you said that. I didn't realize that's how big it was. I looked it up on the map. I knew where it was. And can I just say, from the trailer that you sent, I would have guessed it would have been greener. I wasn't expecting quite that arid landscape, even, I think, less brush than some of the areas I have out here.
Well, that's the beauty of this terrain, is it's so different from place to place. There's all these little microclimates. So there's these mud caves that you'll see in the trailer. These mud caves have been here for 5 million years. These are just clay caves that have been carved out by water and wind erosion over the years. There's no plants whatsoever. It looks like Mars or something. But if you drive 5, 6, 7 miles away and go up a mountain, there's all kinds of Joshua trees. There's all kinds of yucca. There's plants everywhere. It just depends on which little pocket you're in. So if there are creatures living in this park, there's plenty of terrain for them to choose from, and they bring the seasons. If it's really hot, they can go up into the mountains where there's trees and forests and stuff like that. So these little microclimates really make it interesting and increase the odds of something like that surviving out there, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true, because in the, I think it's Vallecito, is that how you say it? The county park and stage station, you guys are surrounded by trees out there, right?
Yeah, and that's down in a little wash in that area, and there's bush and some trees and agatillo, cacti and stuff, and then you just go across the road basically, and then it's all the mud caves and the flats and stuff. You keep driving down the road some, and then it's just boulders and getting into the mountains, and it's just crazy how 10 minutes or even a stone's throw and you're in a whole different looking area.
So to you guys, Derek, had you ever been out in that area before going out there with David for this purpose?
Yeah, that's actually how I uncovered this. Sarah, my wife, and I, we do a lot of camping and hiking in Southern California, and we discovered Borrego State Park. It's a big wildflower searching place. People go there every spring to check out the super blooms and stuff like that. So we ended up going there a few times, and I thought, this place has to have some legends and stuff. So I started doing some research, and I thought, I want to get a book on this. I want to read. I want to get deeper into what's going on. And there's literally nothing out there. So that kind of gave me the hint, like maybe this is something we should create. So that's kind of how I ended up with it on my radar, is just going out there and hearing a few of the legends that I found online.
David, were you a little bit surprised at the change in terrain you found when you guys got there?
I don't know that I was. I mean, it's not like I've ever really experienced something like this, growing up in Kentucky and then spending a lot of my time around the Chicagoland where, it's nothing like this. But going out there, I mean, it was very cool to just bounce around the boulders and things like that, and try to fight off the heat stroke, which we did unsuccessfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just it was cool, but also doing some research on this, some things to look out for, which are things that Derek and I are going to have to be mindful of, which are snakes, the wildlife. We saw big cat tracks, the first time we went into those caves. You can't really go too much into the caves without having some kind of anxiety that it's all going to come down on you at some point. But it's very neat, and I am more than happy to see something new and up for this challenge,
So for both of you guys, as far as the Sandman goes, the Bigfoot out there, the Yucca Man, you guys do believe that, going off, it is a flesh and blood creature. We could talk about the other side of that later, especially considering some of the legends and lore of the area. But for now, flesh and blood. So he's got plenty of cover, water, and food out in this area.
Well, that's a good question, and that's kind of what this whole documentary is for. We want to figure that out. We've been out there for 2 days shooting this little trailer, and that's just not enough time to get any answers on stuff like that. So what we want to do with the documentary is talk to some wildlife officials, talk to some park rangers, talk to some experts, the desert experts that know where to find water, that kind of thing, and see if something can even possibly survive out there. Can a humanoid type creature live? Is there enough water? Is there enough food, cover, that kind of thing? These are the questions we actually want to answer out there, because we just don't know. We have our opinions, we have our thoughts, but we want to get to the bottom of it.
And the goal is to try and bring the audience along in that journey with us to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so did you guys, and this might be putting you on the spot if you don't know, it's not a big deal, but it just popped in my head. Do you guys have stats on as far as how much of the 500,000 acres is more wooded, and how many bodies of water it has and things like that?
I don't know any of that information off the top of my head, but I can tell you that a majority of this park is badlands. It's lands that people probably have never touched. It looks like the Badlands of South Dakota is what it honestly looks like. It's just barren rock as far as you can see. And I don't know how much water is actually there. There's a place called the Yaqui Well, which is one of the top stories on our list here. There's a long-going legend about a haunting at this particular well. David, do you remember the story? Should you tell it, or?
There are three apparitions that are said to be seen around this old well, and which it's not really a well like you'd think of it, with the little roof and the bucket. This is more like kind of like a natural spring in the ground, right, Derek? It's just
it's like a hole in the ground that it looks like people dug out over hundreds of years.
And now it's just kind of covered over, filled in, and there's a little dip in the ground. But people have said that, certain times of night, they'll be out there walking by and they'll see these 3 apparitions, and they're supposedly the ghosts of these 3 bandits, I guess, that or brothers, or changes depending on who's telling it. But the 3 of them found gold in the area, and they were all excited, went out to this well to kind of like refresh themselves and kind of plan what to do next with this gold. And, just like you'd expect, they kind of like attacked each other until they thought there would be one man standing to get all the gold, but they ended up killing each other in the process. So now there's these 3 apparitions that are said to like dance around the well. And it was neat to go out there, and you'll see some of that in the trailer. Derek and I actually visited there at night.
And I will say that it was probably 10 degrees cooler around that well than it was anywhere else. And we were, it's not like we walked down into a dip or a recess of any kind. We were up on the ledge, and it was still a lot cooler up there. So I'm not saying it was ghosts, but it was definitely interesting. And it was exciting for us that we were there for one day and saw something that was at least hard to explain.
Ooh, good teaser. I like that. I won't even bring that up. I won't even ask you privately. I just want to be surprised. All right. So how about the guy that you guys ran into, a man that said he saw giant footprints in snow out there?
Yeah. There's a little town called Ranchita. I'll make sure I get that right. Little town called Ranchita, and it's famous for the Ranchita Yeti, which apparently, and I guess I should back up and mention this, the Sandman or Yucca Man or Zoobies or Mountain Devils, Bigfoot, whatever these people are calling these things. These are all names from that general region, by the way. They're described as very skinny, gaunt. They're not like the big, beefy Sasquatches that you hear about in the Pacific Northwest. These are tall, skinny, and their hair is a lighter color, like a blonde color. So there's a little bit of a difference in the description of these creatures. I don't know where I was going with this tangent, but
well, they're California Bigfoot, so they're on like keto diets, and they're off meat. They're
right.
they're
Spray
plant-based.
Kind of
They're too busy looking for water, so they skip leg and arm day.
Yeah, nobody touches weights out in California. So
anyway, circling back here,
pissing everybody off now. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I live in California. So this town, Ranchita, it's known for this Yeti, and one of the little convenience stores out there in the town, I call this a town, but it's like 3 houses in this little store, but there's an 11-foot tall fiberglass Yeti sitting in their parking lot. So of course we had to stop and check that out and talk to the guy. And he'd heard of legends in the area. He saw some footprints, and he seemed generally interested in what we were doing and the legend itself. So we didn't talk to a lot of people while we were there. It was more just kind of like gathering information.
Scouting.
Yeah, just trying to figure out if this was even doable. We did talk to a handful of people, and everybody was quick to mention how strange the area is. Not everybody had a specific story, but everybody said, this area just seems to have a strange feeling about it.
It's almost like a Sedona kind of a thing, right? It just has that air about it.
Mm-hmm.
It does, yeah.
What about some of the caves? You guys, you were filmed going in and out of some of these caves. Are there more legit caves that might go back that, no one's really ever been in too deep because it can be very dangerous? I just watched the movie The Descent. But, are there actual legit caves that, something could be however many, yards or hundreds of feet in?
Well,
there might be. Yeah, there might be, because didn't go like that. Those things extend for miles, just the mud canyons in there and stuff. And we drove out quite a ways into them and went in some of these caves, but the ones we were going in, they were kind of more like tunnels, and then you'd walk a little bit, and then the ceiling would open up to the bare sky, and then you'd go back and there'd be more of a leaning ledge that you could go under and through. But I would say there's probably caves that extend farther and maybe even go underground in proper cave-like, how you'd picture it. We didn't have time to look for those on that trip, but if there are some, we might check them out. I mean, the bad thing is, like, it literally, a little tremor and stuff just probably starts caking off the walls, and so there is a high degree of danger trying to find this sort of stuff.
Now, this might be jumping the shark a little bit and teasing a little bit too much too early, but can I propose a stretch goal that if you hit it, then we have to see you both in the whole caving with the you get the helmet with the light, and you probably will need a diaper. I would if I had to go into a cave that deep, but maybe we can make that a stretch goal. I mean, just consider that.
Well, I got you beat, actually, and I'm going to piggyback on what David said. The park is littered with abandoned mines.
Oh,
and
even
some of
worse.
these mines are hundreds of feet deep.
Never mind.
And some of them haven't been explored since the 1800s. I mean, the park is so dangerous, you can't just start walking around. In fact, the last time I did a hike there, they had a ranger counting people that went down the trail and then counting the people that came back so they can go get the bodies into the night.
Oh, my God.
It's that dangerous out there with the heat and the wildlife and everything. So,
Wow.
We are going to probably venture into at least a couple of these mines to see if maybe something could be hiding in there. And it's part of the history of the park, so this is stuff that we definitely need to explore. Yeah. So hopefully we survive that.
Just take a really loud whistle and just have a spotter out there. No problem.
Just
a flare gun.
Yeah. I hope the flare gun reaches that high. I mean, as far as the monsters out there, there's also one called, then I have heard of this before, but you don't hear about it a lot, was the Speedway monster.
Yeah, the Speedway monster. Now, that one's a little bit different. That's actually closer to LA, closer to my area. It's in a town called Fontana, which isn't too far away from Borrego, but I'd say maybe close to an hour. But essentially what had taken place there is Fontana's at the base of, I want to say San Antonio Mountain, if I'm remembering correctly, Mount Baldy area. And back in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s, there used to be a racetrack right at the foothill of the mountain there. And as the people were watching the races, they could see this figure running along the tree line back behind the racetrack. And this was a huge, hairy hominid. It was a Sasquatch, for lack of a better term. And for years, people would see this thing just running around, like it would show up every couple months at this racetrack and kind of cause some problems and dig through dumpsters, that kind of thing. In fact, there was a chicken coop around there that was raided by this thing, and somebody actually caught it in their chicken coop.
I think somebody actually, it came after somebody's car once, didn't it? Didn't it like mess up somebody's fender or door?
It may have. Somebody. That does sound familiar. That's the crazy thing about this. There's so many first-hand encounters from this area that it's so hard to keep everything straight. It's just they all sort of blend together, but they're all so similar that it really makes you think, man, there might be something going on out here.
Now, how about and then we can kind of come away from the Bigfoot creature after this, but it'll tie into the history of it because you guys mentioned some Native American ties and things like that. So as far as the area itself being a hotspot and why that might be, there's a lot of theories in other areas. Bridgewater Triangle would be one of them. Is it more a geological thing that's creating this kind of a vortex where you have these different entities and possible cryptid creatures out in the same area? Or is it because of the types of peoples and what they may have been doing on the land that may draw some of this activity there?
That's a great question. I think that's one of the things we're going to explore in this, whether or not this is something like situated on a ley line or there's telluric energy that's running through the area or something. Maybe there's some kind of underground vein of quartz or something. I don't know if that would square with the geology, but something could be causing some weirdness in that area. Or, which is something that we tried in the, you'll see it in the trailer, we went out to find these petroglyphs that Native Americans have drawn on the rocks. And, it could be that tribes that lived in the area could have drawn out some stuff or used that energy. Who knows? But there are, what'd you say, Derek? Hundreds, if not thousands, of these rock drawings. And we wanted to find them because they purportedly show, well, they some of them look like they might have some kind of UFO or creature, or some kind of maybe meteorological event or something in the sky, and they're drawn on these rocks, and they're not easy to find, and obviously because people don't want to broadcast where they are so they don't get ruined or graffitied or whatever. But Derek and I went out looking for them. Didn't have luck that day, but we I think narrowed down where some are for the next time we go out there. But we want to find these. I kind of want to talk to somebody who might know the history of the area and the history of the Native Americans in the area. That maybe there is some kind of shamanic practices that happened or something like that. I think that would be a very cool thing to follow up on. I think it's a great question.
I'll add to that, actually. The park is so dry, gets so little rain that these petroglyphs and what's the other word? There's two words for a petroglyph and another word. But anyway, they survive for a really long time. They're not getting water. They're not exposed to the elements. So people just wandering the desert find new ones constantly. And there's some really interesting ones. There's a few that show figures with hulking shoulders. And I'm not real sure what these things depict. They don't look like people because there's also people in the same petroglyph, and they look separate. There's another one. David actually talked about it. There's I can't remember what they call this one either.
The blue sun.
The blue sun. That's what they call it. Yeah. I'm so prepared for this. The natives drew these celestial objects. They're in the sky. They look like a sun, but there's a blue one. There's a red one. There's I believe like a yellow or a green one. They're all different colors. And to me, I'm looking at that. I'm saying, well, they could be describing some sort of aerial phenomenon that they couldn't explain, and they're just simply drawing a picture of it. So I'd really like to talk to somebody and see what their interpretation of that is, and maybe see if there's some sort of astronomical event that took place back in the day that this could correlate to. Really, we just want to get answers to all the questions that this park is proposing to us. So we just want to get to the bottom of everything that's going on.
Yeah, and see if there may be some kind of thing that ties it all together, a reason for it.
I mean, all you have to do is watch the movie The Witch and watch the end of that, and there's your answer right there.
It's the devil!
Can you imagine walking up on a scene like that? How quick would you run? And then, of course, you're going to be the one that breaks the stick like, clack, clack. Oh, well.
There's two types of people. There's the type of people that'll run, and then there's the type of people like, oh, where do I sign up?
Yeah, they'll just get naked immediately.
Yeah, like, whoa, there's a lot of boobs over there. Sign me up.
Ladies.
Never mind the goat. I mean, he can go anytime. Yeah. Now, what about Black Phillip? I love that. I like that movie. I'm such a freaking weirdo that I'll just put that on in the background just because I like to hear it. That's so stupid, but
it is so well done. Yeah,
it is, and I like and also the Old English is so hard to pick up that I think every time I actually sit and watch it, I'll pick up another word. I'm like, oh, that's what he was saying.
Have you guys seen The Lighthouse yet? I haven't seen it, but
no.
It's really good.
Yes, no, I want to so bad.
Neither of you guys have at all?
No.
Okay, well, I guess that just killed that conversation. I was excited to hear all about that.
None of us have time to watch TV or movies.
No.
So what are you going to do?
Stop emailing us, everyone. We'll have time to give you feedback on these films. Just kidding. Love you. So the glowing figures was something that I think, Derek, you brought that up in the trailer. Now, is that more attributed to ghost activity, or is that more on the UFO side for those guys?
Well, that's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it. But what I'll do, I'll tell you the story that I'm referring to here. There was I want to say husband and wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, something along those lines. They decided they were going to go backpacking in the park. So they arrived late in the evening. It was 4 or 5 in the evening, and it was about to get dark. So they walked like 2 miles and decided they were going to set up camp like 20, 30 feet off the trail. So they set up camp. They're in their tent sleeping, and in the middle of the night, the gentleman hears people talking. And he can't quite make out what they're saying or where it's coming from, so he pokes his head out the tent, And down the trail, he can see several figures, I'll call them figures because I don't know what else they are, walking toward him. They're all different heights. They're all very skinny. I almost describe them like Slender Man, but they're not in suits or anything like that. They're just skinny beings. But they, man, I hope I get this right. They're carrying like glowing objects. And if I'm remembering the report correctly, they're glowing themselves a bit. But these aren't people. He's stressing that they're not people. They're some strange beings. And they walk straight past his tent, and they don't acknowledge that he's even there. And, of course, once they walk by, they gather everything, and they get back in the car and take off. So we don't know what those are, but it's a perfect example of the kind of stuff that's reported out of this triangle.
Derek, you and Sarah camp all the time. I mean, wouldn't that ruin you guys just slightly if something like that walked past your tent?
Oh, man. I don't know. I'm so torn because I just want to see all this stuff. I want to get to the bottom of it.
And what do people tell us all the time? Be careful what you wish for. But we're always screaming about it. It's so boring. We get to hear all these cool stories, right? People on our show. But
let me decide whether or not I'm going to do that.
Like, well, I might shat myself, but you know, maybe I wanted to see that and have a confirmation experience of that. You know?
Might be totally worth it.
Yeah.
Right.
Just throw those pants right out, no problem.
I'll be honest, I would love to see something like that. I mean, as terrifying as it would be, I would love it. I would feel honored, I guess.
Just going
same
off
here.
Sorry, David, go ahead.
No, I just saying same here. I'd love to. I feel like it would help me get into that mindset of, you know, what people have experienced and help me, you know, see it from a different perspective. Yeah,
there's so many people out there that know. They know they believe in something, and I'm not that person. I'm skeptical about every single thing in the paranormal field, and I feel like you have to be until you've experienced something that's completely, made up your mind. Until that happens to me, I'm on the fence about everything. So I want to see that proof. I want somebody or something to say, hey, this is what's happening. Here's the proof, and I'm like, okay, I 100% believe now. Until then, I'm on the fence for everything, I think.
You damn grump, Derek. God.
I know.
God, David, how do you deal with that, huh? I mean, gosh. No,
I enable it.
No, it's a good thing. We have to have those hats and those glasses on, man. We have to.
Well, the best part of it is if you act like that and then you find something that you still can't explain, that makes it so much scarier and so much more terrifying. And that's when I really get excited. When something comes up and I'm like, I have literally no explanation for what's going on here. Like, this is insane. That's when I get excited.
Just off the subject of Borrego, really quickly, I just want to say that for you, Derek, I would love for you to experience the mirrored men. I just think that would be my hand up for my vote for one of your confirmation experiences. I think that would be pretty cool.
And that's one of the few that I would be like, I don't know if I need to do that or not.
Well, there you go. That's the one that definitely needs to happen then. Get the brown pants, buddy.
There was actually a sighting like 3 miles from my house that somebody called in, randomly reported.
Oh, God.
And I've gone up there a few times, like, I'll just swing by and see if there's just 3 dudes standing out here. And there never is. But when they're that close, it's like something you can't help but kind of, I'm going to check this out every once in a while.
Keep an eye out for.
Yeah,
100%.
You probably have to be pretty careful, because what if they would have to have a lot of time and some money to hire some very talented people, but what if they hired, 3 mimes or something, and they choreograph something and they know which route you take, and then there's your mirrored men experience,
You're about to get some of the creepiest footage ever captured.
That or shot.
Yeah.
That's the other problem.
And then somebody's going to jail.
Derek's on TMZ because he's kicking 3 mimes' asses. Oh, gosh. All right. Back to Borrego. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
Viacito. Can we tell the story of the young woman who died out, at least around that station area?
Yeah. David, you want me to do it, or do you want to tackle that one?
I'm fine either way.
I think you did it last time, so I'll do it this time.
Great.
we've told this story before, believe it or not. So the Vallecito stage station it's on the Butterfield stage line, which I guess has been a stagecoach line since like 1850 or like a really long time. And this I'll call it a building. It's made out of mud. It's got what was the roof made out of, David? Do you remember? Was it still straw?
It seems sort of thatched, but I'm not exactly remembering. It also there was horse stables, like all kinds of stuff.
But this place looked like it did back in the 50s, I'm sure of it, with a few exceptions, like an exit sign or whatever posted to it. So at any rate, back in the day, the late 1800s, a woman arrived at the station ill. She was sick. She was on the stage. They dropped her off, and she progressively got worse and ended up dying in complete agony. I guess she was screaming throughout the night and then finally passed away. But once she died, they kind of went through her belongings to see what she was doing, and apparently she was a bride on her way to San Diego to be married. So they found a wedding dress in her trunk, and of course they buried her in that dress. And from that day on, and to this day, going forward, people have seen a woman in white roaming the hillsides around the Vallecito stage station, stage stop. So it's just another one of these women in white classic ghost stories from the park. And a lot of these come from the Old West days, the stagecoach days, again with the well, and there's a couple other bandit stories throughout the park that all seem to come from that same time period. And David and I really enjoy the Old West kind of theme, so it really speaks to us.
In fact, I know that David mentioned he's got a second podcast he's working on, as if he wasn't busy enough. But if you guys ever want to start a Wild West podcast with the three of us, I am so down for that, because I love Westerns so much. I mean, David, you're not busy enough. Neither are you, Derek. Let's take on another podcast. Sound good?
Let's just do it. Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Old West.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
I'm only using 2/3 of my day as it is.
You don't need to sleep.
The sleep part for the other third. Yeah. Who cares?
Just need to find some true vampires and get
actually,
bit.
Again?
Yeah.
That actually sounds...
I'm not doing that again.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it does, actually. I talk about it on the show all the time, but I'm fascinated with Native Americans, too. Like, their culture, the stories, the way they live. Like, I'm just fascinated with that as well. And that, obviously ties into the Old West theme.
I mean, it's so cool because the Old West, the stories alone of just things like the robberies and the day-to-day was fascinating in and of itself because it was so dangerous. But then, you could throw in some ghost stuff, of course, being who we are. But I'm just saying, I always thought if I ever did another show, it would be something about the Old West. Anyway, okay, another digression. So last but not least, before we touch on really why we're here and why we're so excited about this area and the upcoming project, we have to touch on Homeboy in the RV. And I'm assuming that's the same man that walked up to your car with the alien mask across his face. Is that how you met him?
Yeah, that's David's brother.
Yeah.
Lovely gentleman, I'm sure.
No, this was awesome. That guy's name was Coyote, and he was crazy in the best way possible. David, I'm going to let you tell this story because you do it so much better than I do. But man.
Well, this man is a character and a half. We saw this spot. He's actually on Google Maps, and we're like, what is this? Coyote's Flying Saucer Repair? Like, what is this? We have to check this out. So we drive to it, and literally, it's just the side of the road. There's this old Winnebago and a bunch of UFOs sitting around it. And I think there's a boat back there somewhere, maybe two boats, just sitting there. Mannequins everywhere. And
that's not creepy at all. The mannequins, that's a nice touch.
It gets worse.
Oh.
We get out and walk up to see if this guy would be willing to talk to us. And he hangs out of the side of this Winnebago with like 20 dogs. Like a couple of them are hanging out the window with him, and most of them are running around. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you, and like, so we spend an hour and a half listening to this guy's stories and just trying to keep up with him, basically. And he gives us rocks that he's painted little alien faces on. He puts this mask on, comes over to the car and like leans in and was talking to us, and that was comfortable for everyone. Mm-hmm. And he tells us. I mean, we did manage to get some very good stories out of him, one of which you see a bit of in the trailer, and he was such a character. Derek, it was one of those things where we kind of started trying our best to be like, okay, great, thank you, and get away. It took us like 20 minutes to do that maneuver, but it was so worth it. Oh my gosh, this guy.
He was hilarious. He would tell us about his girls. He had all these girls. And we were pretty sure he was talking about mannequins. Because he would reference in a general direction, like my girl Brenda over there, and you look into a mannequin piloting the boat. And I'm like, is that Brenda? What's going on here?
Brenda's going to pilot the boat once the flood comes back, right?
Maybe, possibly. And we should point out that they're probably 100 miles from the nearest body of water.
Yeah.
And he had no less than 3 boats.
And also, who knows how much high. That was up on a mountain. Like, there's literally a little, lookout tower just up the road from there to see the whole valley. And it's, so yeah.
Brenda.
Double preparation for that boat, I guess. I don't know.
How many?
Sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I'm sorry. Did he invite you guys in the RV, or did he? And then you're like, "Yeah, we're gonna stay out here, out here."
No, but he did offer us a hat, and we politely declined.
Like off his head.
He couldn't find it. It was in a drawer somewhere he was looking for, but
he switched hats a couple times. But
he's like, "Brenda, where'd you put that UFO hat, honey?" Bless his heart.
Oh,
and, yeah, his whole thing, like every 2 minutes, he'd be like, "Dude," and then he'd start a new thought.
Just out of nowhere, like in the middle of his sentence, he just, "Dude."
You guys are probably like hinting to the cameraman, like, "Keep filming, do not stop filming."
No,
100%.
This is gold. Because he actually did bring up a story, and I'm assuming that's not his story. It's something about running on 86 South. And he said it was like a cross between a dog and a human?
Yeah. He actually gave us what sounds like a Dogman encounter. He said it was his friend driving up, like you said, 86, which is, I want to say on the north side of Salton Sea. If you're familiar with Salton Sea, that's another crazy place in this area. It was, I don't even want to get on a tangent, but it was accidentally created. It was a dry lake bed, an old sink, and then they rerouted the Colorado River in the early 1900s, and then it flooded the whole valley, basically. So now there's still a lake there that's so salty nothing can really live in it, and they use it for irrigation and stuff, so now there's tons of fertilizer and stuff being washed back into it, so now there's huge algae blooms, and what little fish did live in there are now dying off en masse, so the sand on the beaches is actually fish bone.
Oh my goodness.
It kind of gives you an indication of how many fish have actually died here, and it's like thick. It feels like you're at the ocean. And there's a bunch of towns around it that are completely abandoned. It's insane. So if you're interested in that kind of like derelict stuff, look up Salton Sea. I promise you'll be interested in that. But the encounter that he described took place in that strange area over there, and it runs parallel to a set of train tracks, and I believe it's the Union Pacific Railroad, actually.
Wow.
So I don't know if that maybe ties into the Dogman used the train. I don't know.
The hobo Dogman.
The hobo Dogman. I mean, I'm just creating legends here, but it just kind of dawned in my head that road does parallel that train track, and it does go all the way to who knows where. Union Pacific's a really big railroad through this area, so I don't know. I might be talking on my butt here. I don't know.
Hobo Dogman. I like that. That's a new hashtag, man.
Yeah.
That's
Rails
blow
and
up.
tails.
David, now this is a family show, okay? We need to calm down. All right, guys. Well, let's let everybody know really why we're chatting and what's coming up for you guys and what we hope to execute.
So we are going to launch this Kickstarter on March 10th, and this Kickstarter is the crux of the whole thing. We will either get funded for it and make this thing, or we get nothing. So we've got 4 weeks to make this happen. Right now we are getting the Kickstarter page set up, so you should be able to go there soon and click a little thing to get a reminder of when this goes live. And, if you keep up with our social media and stuff, you'll probably hear it on there as well. But we got 4 weeks to get this funded. We've got a ton of great rewards or offers. If you choose to help us and support us on there, there's many tiers. Derek, what are some of the ones that we are including on there for people?
Well, I think the best one, in my opinion, is the very first level, the $10 level. David and I are doing an exclusive podcast just for the creation of the documentary. We don't know how many episodes, like 15, 20, something like that, but this will be a bi-weekly show that basically tells everybody, where the progress is, what we've been working on, a few stories that we've dug up, that kind of thing. We'll probably have some guests on as well. That's the $10 level, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think there's around the $200 level that's like this desert curated kit where you get all these kind of Borrego themed items. That's a pretty cool one. You can be an executive producer and get credit in the film. The basic Kickstarter levels. I think we've covered most of those.
Is there a hobo dogman petrified turd in there for people at some level, please?
There is now.
Yeah. We're going to paint rocks with alien faces and include that.
What was that thing called that was out here in Vegas for a little bit? The paint the rock, and you paint, you take one, you leave one, kind of a thing. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for $5,000, we'll send Coyote to your house for a weekend.
That's right.
I mean, you won't be bored.
No, you won't.
Absolutely.
But he has to bring his alien mask, and then, of course, the hat that he was looking for you guys will be included.
Oh, he's bringing the Winnebago and the boats and everything.
Brenda will come
with him. Brenda will be there.
The funny thing is, one of those UFOs was attached. He welded it onto a golf cart, and it's a functioning, driving thing. And he apparently takes it to parades and stuff and drives around in it, according to him.
He told us that he was hired to go in the Pasadena New Year's Parade. Is that right, David? Is that what he said?
That sounds right, yeah.
He told me, it was a big parade. It had to have been that. The Rose Bowl parade. And he said that he was hired to, drive the UFO throughout that thing. And there was another one in Texas that he was telling us about. He went through a drive-through McDonald's in the UFO. He had stories for literally anything you can think of. He had a story for it.
What if forget Area 51, Wright-Patterson, all of it? What if forget all of the stories about the possible craft that they either have that is functioning or they're trying to reproduce, and Coyote is the one that has the only functioning UFO on the planet, either because it was brought here and he found it, or he's one of them?
But he's definitely one of them.
That's the more plausible answer.
No question. He's definitely one of them.
Forget Right Pat, folks. We've got Coyote out there in Borrego State Park.
That guy was awesome.
So how about the trailer, though? When will people be able to check out the trailer?
I think it'll be part of the Kickstarter, right, David?
Yeah, that one, it'll be live when the
Okay.
Kickstarter goes live, and you'll be able to see it on there. I'm sure we'll probably include it on our social media at some point as well. But the main hub is going to be the Kickstarter page for sure.
If we do our jobs right, it'll be everywhere, and you guys won't be able to avoid it. So.
Right.
Also very true.
You'll pay us to shut us up.
This again? Is that I see Brenda again? God bless. I love Brenda. I'm so stuck on her because I can just see her sitting in that boat.
She had a little captain's hat and everything.
She did, yeah.
Was she
stylish.
nude or was she covered up?
Scantily clad, I think. Maybe like a bikini on or something.
Mermaid outfit.
A very Raquel Welch type of deal, I think.
100%. Like an Austin Powers extra or something.
Oh my goodness. God bless Coyote. Well, that was a fortuitous meeting, I would say, for you guys.
Well, if you guys are driving along Interstate 8 and you're near, what's that town, Ocotillo? Is that what it was?
Ocotillo, yeah.
You got to stop at Coyote's UFO repair shop. You just don't talk to him. Just drive by and look at all this stuff.
Don't stop.
You can stop.
If you got a few hours.
And you can take pictures of anything, and you can even sit down on his couch and watch Underworld outside if you would like. But
TV's outside.
Well, yeah, he invited us to movie night that night. I forgot about that. He had a movie night going on. He was going to show Underworld.
He thinks he's Michael Madsen from Kill Bill or something. Just everything's outside. I mean, of course, it is a beautiful area, so why not, right? He's watching for his peoples going over.
Well, he couldn't watch it inside. There's dogs in there.
Well, yeah, that's where the dog. Well, he's like, why would I go inside? That's where the dogs are. Oh, okay. Bless his heart. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us on.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And if I could say this real quick, we are looking for firsthand experiences from that area. So if anybody has, an encounter from Salton Sea, Joshua Tree, especially Hands of Borrego or that area, you can call my hotline at 1-888-608-NIGHT. It's just a voicemail message service. So just, leave your story in the form of a voicemail and we'll throw it in a documentary or something.
Yeah. And even if you don't want to call or if it's too long to tell or something, we prefer the call because that way we could use the audio on the thing. But if you want to also just shoot us a message either on our social media or on our contact pages on the websites, blurryphotos.org, monstersamongus podcast.com, then you can, by all means, do that. Send us any encounter, every encounter, anything you want to do.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, get to it out there, everybody. They're looking for encounters, and you know how to get a hold of them. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon.